There's a common idea that globalization began with the fall of the Berlin Wall, but academic reality points elsewhere. As Hyun-Woo Lin argues, globalization did not replace the Cold War. Rather, it emerged from it through a massive increase in the scale and speed of transnational linkages between 1945 and 1989. Back then, both the United States and the Soviet Union shared the same goal, to establish themselves as the dominant power in a new global system. After the World Wars, we experienced a period of re-globalization led by the Americans, who sought to restore the world economy through free markets and the capitalist system to prevent more nations from falling into the Soviet sphere. It was a massive investment of money and effort to prove the superiority of their model. This globalization would not have been possible without the technological advancements born from war. We moved from planes that could barely fly a few meters to indispensable combat machines. We saw the birth of the first modern computer with Alan Turing's work in code-breaking, and later, the space race and the development of military computers further connected the world. But this interconnection came with a cost: constant anxiety. Consumer technology, like cameras and household appliances, became common in Western homes to promote the global market. Yet beneath that surface lay the concept of mutually assured destruction. Basically, if anyone fired first, the entire world would end. We never came closer to that than in October 1962. For the United States, the 1953 Cuban Revolution was a major problem. They now had a communist government just a 45-minute flight from the Florida coast. They tried to eliminate it in every possible way, from the 634 assassination attempts against Fidel Castro to the failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, which was one of the nation's most embarrassing defeats. This pushed Castro to seek a secret defensive alliance with Nikita Khrushchev to place medium-range ballistic missiles on the island. When American intelligence discovered the structures on October 16th, they realized those missiles could reach Washington and almost the entire continental United States. Curiously, for an entire week, the American public knew nothing. This silence was a strategic move by Kennedy to decide on a response and shape public perception before the story broke. Press reports were deliberately vague. Even on October 16th, only routine meetings were mentioned with no specific clues. It wasn't until the night of October 22 that Kennedy gave his 18-minute televised address announcing the naval quarantine. From that point on, the media exploded. Papers like the New York Times covered every move, while the Voice of America, VOA, broadcast 24/7 in multiple languages for a global audience, becoming the nation's official informational vehicle. The mood was one of extreme anxiety. Reports described people with sleepless, swollen eyes at the State Department.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Only last Thursday, as evidence of this rapid offensive buildup was already in my hand, Soviet Foreign Minister Gromyko told me in my office that he was instructed to make it clear once again, as he said his government had already done, that Soviet assistance to Cuba, and I quote, pursued solely the purpose of contributing to the defense capabilities of Cuba, unquote. That, and I quote him, training by Soviet specialists of Cuban nationals in handling defensive armaments was by no means offensive. And that if it were otherwise, Mr. Gromyko went on, the Soviet government would never become involved in rendering such assistance, unquote. That statement also was false. Acting, therefore, in the defense of our own security and of the entire Western Hemisphere, and under the authority entrusted to me by the Constitution, as endorsed by the resolution of the Congress, I have directed that the following initial steps be taken immediately. To halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated. All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, where they're found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union. I call upon Chairman Khrushchev to halt and eliminate this clandestine, reckless, and provocative threat to world peace and to stable relations between our two nations. I call upon him further to abandon this course of world domination and to join in an historic effort to end the perilous arms race and to transform the history of man. Our goal is not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world. God willing, that goal will be achieved.
But the globalization of the message does not mean everyone thought the same. In the Soviet Union, the newspaper Pravda criticized American intervention, claiming the U.S. sought to stifle Cuba's freedom. In 2012, Khrushchev's son, Sergei, explained something key. The average Soviet citizen did not view the crisis with the same panic as Americans. For them, having the enemy nearby was normal, whereas for Americans, it was an existential shock because their territory had not been invaded since colonial times. On October 28th, the crisis ended with the withdrawal of the missiles. Although there was relief, the world had changed. Humanity accepted the terrible knowledge that nuclear destruction could rain from the skies at any moment. It was the ultimate proof that, in a globalized world, risk is also global.